Hi folks, it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. You may be wondering why I'm in my pajamas at 5:30 on a Wednesday. Actually, you're probably not thinking that because you don't know that it's 5:30 on a Wednesday right now, but it's currently 5:30 on a Wednesday and I'm in my pajamas, but I'm in my nice pajamas, so I decided it wasn't worth changing to start this video. But today is October 1st and I was thinking, oh my god, where did the year go? Wow, really a truly unique idea and thought that nobody has ever had before. And I was thinking, the year coming to a close, and I was trying to reflect on some of the goals that I had for the year for my reading, and really the eternal goal that I have of finishing series that I'm currently reading. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I should try and finish some series. I just finally finished reading, not finally, I finally picked up and read A Murderous Relation by Deanna Raybourn, which is the fifth book in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series. I've had that book on my shelf for ages. I read A Dangerous Collaboration at the beginning of 2024. Okay, and I was like, oh my god, I love this series. Didn't read a book for almost 2 years. Okay, but I did read one, and I again loved it. Don't know why I'm like this, but this is who I am as a person. And I was feeling so good about making progress in series that I was like, you know what? Let's really go for it. Let's try and finish some. I did start a vlog that has never seen the light of day because it didn't get very far, where I was trying to finish series I was currently reading. Of course, I was then hit by the infamous slump, and that just, fell to the wayside. But I'm back, and now it's fall vibes. So you know what that means? Fantasy. And so what I decided to do and start today is this brick of a book right here, The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. This is the fourth and final book in Era 2 of Mistborn, and I was thinking, you know what, fantasy really puts me in a fall really puts me in a fantasy mood, and since it's the beginning of the fall and this book is an absolute brick, even though I know Brandon Sanderson is very quick reading most of the time, it's just still not quick reading because there's so many pages and so many words, but I do always have a fun time with that. And so I was thinking, let's start off the fantasy kick with the big giant fantasy. Get it out of the way. Feel super accomplished. And then we'll see what other series I might be finishing in this video. I'm not quite sure yet. But we're going to start with this and we're going to see where it leads and where it brings us. Yeah, I guess I still never actually explained why I'm in my pajamas. But it's because I ran all of my errands straight after work before coming home. So then got home and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna reward myself with a cute little shower. Got my little shower and then was like, well, why would I put clothes on when I could put pajamas on because I'm not going anywhere this evening, And then I remembered, oh yeah, I wanted to keep wearing clothes and not pajamas because I was going to start this video, but then I started this video anyway, so now we're here. Okay, I'm going to read The Lost Metal. I have no idea how much of this I'm going to read before I update you. Normally, I would read a third of a book before I update you, but a third of this book is going to be I don't know, 200 pages or something or more. So I probably won't do that. But I also don't want to be popping in here every 10 seconds to give you more updates. So we're just going to play it by ear. I'm going to read some of this book, and then when I feel I have read a significant amount to give and enough to give you an update, I'll give you an update. So there we go. See you for the update. Hello. I apologize for the extremely vibey lighting, but the days are getting shorter, so now by the time I get home, I'm dealing with this. So here we are. I am now about, I want to say 150-ish pages into The Lost Metal. Cute. I feel almost in a way, I'm still just kind of getting to the end of the setup for where this is going. This is obviously a very long book, so there's a lot going on. I am really liking it so far though. As with all of the other Mistborn books, both in Era 1 and Era 2, there is a significant time jump between each book. So I think this one it's 6 to 8 years after the Bands of Mourning. And I really like that because it really allows for the characters to kind of come into themselves and to to develop kind of off camera, and then you're situationally explained how that came to be. So that's been fun. Basically all of our main characters, Wax, Wayne, Steris, Marcy, they're all now kind of in like new stages of their lives because it's been like 6 years, and that's been like really interesting to see like that kind of development. And now there's so much traffic happening right now. Okay. Now that like kind of the premise for this book, it's like slowly kind of coming together because we have, for lack of wanting to do any spoilers, because this is like the 4th book in the 2nd trilogy of like a series. Oof. And this is like kind of not a spoiler vlog, but you have kind of like the discovery that leads to the questions that will develop into what I assume is going to be the lost metal. What we're discovering is that like all of the world building and the magic building that has been happening since like the beginning of era 1 is now kind of like compiling on top of each other, and you're using that knowledge to come to the conclusions. They're like kind of like leading you into where this might be going, but of course we're still very much in the dark. There is also a nice switch in this one where at the end of the Bands of Mourning, the world for Mistborn has really been like kind of blown open in a huge way, and the expansion of that is like kind of like the big thing that you're left with at the end of the Bands of Mourning is this like idea that the world is so much bigger than we initially thought for the characters. Obviously, like if you're aware of Brandon Sanderson at all, you understand that the Mistborn novels are part of the Cosmere, which is like the bigger world, but just kind of like having some of that blown open and just made aware in these books it's like really interesting, really fun. And we're kind of seeing how that event happening is now like impacting the development of Elendel and the Basin politically and like financially and all of these other things. It's very interesting and I'm excited to keep going. I have to say I really love the writing style of the Wax and Wayne series. It's like very funny and light, but like it's serious topics and all that, but there's kind of like always a joke to be had, and you can kind of like flick through things, and there's always something that's like a small side funny story or event to kind of like balance out all of the heavy world building and like magic systems that you're reading about, which I really like. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading this book. The sun is gonna slowly continue to set and blind me, apparently. And I'll give you guys another update soon. Okay. Hello. I've decided to just really try switching up my angles for my reading vlogs today. So we are in my bedroom. Welcome. If you're curious, I made this cross stitch. It's like my prized possession. But vlog update for The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. I'm now like about halfway through. I have just reached part 3. Forgot that this book has parts, so I could have read part 1 and then give you an update. Instead, I read almost all of part 1, gave you an update, then read the last like, I don't know, 30 to 40 pages of part 1, and then was like, oh, the book's in parts. So I decided I'd read until part 3 because part 3 is also about halfway through. Felt like a really great place to stop, you know? Brandon Sanderson decided to stop, put a whole thing that says part 3 there. So that's where I'm at. Indeed, indeed. I have to say, where the book is right now, even though this is a really big book and there's lots of book left, like there's a whole book length of book left in this book, but even with that, I feel like what we've set up is so huge that I'm not sure how this is going to be a conclusion to all of that. I feel like I have seen like vaguely that Brandon Sanderson is now working on era 3 of Mistborn, and I've known that he's had this like eras of, you know, the evolution of a world kind of idea going for like a long time. Like I kind of assumed there would be an era 3 of Mistborn, so that's not shocking. But I do know that that's also going to be like a really big time jump away from where this series is going to end, and it's going to be basically like a new series, right? There's going to be all new characters, there's going to be all new premise, and it's just going to kind of like link back to the history that was established in era 1 and era 2, and then like, you know, again, how the world develops from that and like the evolution of it all, which is like a really interesting concept. But that's that. and this is this book. And basically what I'm saying is, as much as I believe that there's a certain level of evolution and development that's still going to happen large scale, in reality, like, what we've been building up in era 2 of Mistborn is gonna have to conclude in this book. Like, this is the last book. I know it's the end. This is it. This is the end, baby. And because of that, and because of like how big what we've set up is and where we're at right now in the storyline, I just like don't know how it's going to conclude in like the next, I don't know, like 360 pages. Even though 360 is like a huge amount of pages. But the thing about era 2 of Mistborn, the Wax and Wayne series, and what makes it so fun is that this really is like an action-packed adventure book that's also a high fantasy. So there's a lot of page count in this that's being taken up by like fight scenes and battles, and that's so fun. It reads so fast. I think it's done really well in this. I think all of the fight and the battle scenes in era 2 of Mistborn are done much better than era 1. Sometimes when you're reading era 1 of Mistborn, when you're getting to those fight scenes and like the use of the magic, it can get a little confusing and like too descriptive about like how this person is flipping around this other person, da 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 da, and it, like, you know, I get lost. I find this is much more straightforward. It's easier to follow and it's like fun reading. But like I said, taking up a lot of pages with the fight scenes because the descriptions of them take up room. So you're reading, you know, like dozens of pages that are only a very small snippet of time because it's just like very detailed fight scene descriptions. And assuming this is going to have more fight scenes, like I doubt there's not going to be any more fight scenes until like some big battle at the end or something, that I don't know then where all of the development and the conclusion for how we're going to get to the other side of this mystery, how we're going to get the end of this like tension and this build up and this world building and this discovery and where all of this is going to lead, how that's all going to happen in 350 pages approximately, which is like a funny thing to be concerned about because like I said, so many pages. But like given the context of like this series and how I've seen it being read, I'm like a tad worried it's going to feel rushed at the end. Which is stressful. I will say what I'm really settling into, I love that we have more Wayne POV. I love Wayne. I think he's probably my favorite character. But I also really love Steris. And the thing about era 2 of Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson has such wonderfully unique perspectives in his writing. So even though all of this is written in third person POV, they're so distinct, even though it's like not the first person, which is usually how you feel like the intimacy of the character POV is with first person. Using third person, it's a little more difficult to have it be so connected to the characters, and Brandon Sanderson does such an amazing job of that. You can just be reading thoughts without any context of that it's Wayne or that it's Steris or that it's Wax or that it's Mercy, and you know whose POV you're in based off of the writing style and the descriptive wording that's being used and the narration that's being done. It's just so distinct for each character. It's probably one of my favorite things about this series in general is just how distinctive the characters are, and then they come together to like make this like band of weirdos who are trying to save the world, and it's fun and great. But then there's also like huge stakes happening, which is like a wonderful combination of like it's serious, it's deep, it's intense, there's tension, but then also it's like funny and you're laughing. And I think it's just like done wonderfully in era 2 of Mistborn in general, but also in this book. I'm just like really noticing the very distinct character POVs, and I'm loving that. We're at like a point in the plot now where an exact timeline has kind of been established for when certain events are expected to occur, and it's like we gotta figure it out before then scenario. So I think that's really going to push the pacing of the book, and I think that's probably how it's going to manage to conclude in like the half of the book we have left. But I think it's still asking a lot because there's a lot in place right now that is still like uncertain, and it feels like only now at part 3 are we really like fully established in what is the major thing that's happening in this book that we're going to have to solve and overcome. I think we've only fully just got to that point, and we're halfway through the book. And I think usually it's best if that's happening about a third of the way through the book, and then you have 2/3 of the book to figure it out and get through it and conclude. So that's kind of like my main thoughts right now on it. I'm having a great time. It's been super fun. I feel like I've been reading this very quickly. And part of it is that like it's a mass market paperback, so like the pages are literally smaller than like a bigger book. But I still feel like it's very quick reading. Little gobble gobble turkey moment. It's Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada, so gobble gobble. But yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at, is I'm enjoying it. I love the characters. I love the action. It's fun. It's exciting. The tension is now like building and building, and I only expected to build more now that we have this timeline in place. However, I am like a little concerned if it's going to feel rushed near the end, and I'm really hoping that the pacing for this conclusion works out, because there's a lot on the line for this book. Like, it's a big book, it's a big ending, and it's the end of a big series. And, you know, that's a lot to ask of one tiny little brick. But I'm going to figure it out. So I'll let you guys know when I have another update. I guess maybe if there's like a part 4 page, I'll update you when I get to that. I'm trying not to like, you know, spoil it, so I haven't looked ahead. But I assume there's probably a part 4. If not, when I'm somewhere around 3/4 of the way through, I'll give you an update and let you know what I'm thinking. But until then, I'm gone. Couple of updates about the book. 1, there is no part 4, and 2, I now only have like 100 pages of this left because I kept reading the book and then forgetting that it's now fall. So I'd get home and it'd be like, oh my god, got home from work, let me read more of this book, and then I'll do an update, and then I'd read some more of the book. Now it's nighttime. Oops. Because the days are getting shorter, so my bad. I have 100 pages of this left. I will say, I'm liking it. Guys, I like this series. I like Mistborn. I like Brandon Sanderson's writing. It's funny. There is many a times where I found myself out loud hee hee ha ha laughing. Maybe more just a singular laugh, than hee hee ha ha. That kind of makes it sound like I'm just like sitting in silence and like laughing out loud for a long period of time, and that's not the case. But like, it is funny, okay? As I suspected, there is the action scenes happening, right? We're nearing the end of the book. It's getting big pages of battle, fight, and that's entertaining and that's fun. However, I still don't really feel like this is feeling like the end of the series. Like, there's 100 pages left, and I feel like there's a lot of questions that are left up in the air, and I'm now like, how many of these questions are just going to be like left as questions for like the world and not fully clued up in Mistborn itself, you know? So that's like becoming mildly concerning for me. I have to say, my biggest disappointment in this book is the fact that this is the final book in a series, and we've kind of spent 3 books before this kind of making this fun group, right? This ragtag team of characters that are all like, you know, very unique in their personalities and have a really fun dynamic between all of them. And now in this final book, they're like split up for almost the entire book. Like, I was wanting this to be the gang all comes together to solve the big mystery at the end of the series or whatever, you know? And instead we have them all like splitting off into groups. And I'm kind of disappointed by that, because I was wanting more of like the whole gang dynamic for this. So as much as I love the individual characters, I'm missing the interactions between them, because they've kind of all gone off on their own side quests a little bit, and I find that a bit sad. There's also like one part of this plot that I felt was kind of like leading somewhere where you're like, where is this going? Oh, this seems like it's going to be like the big thing. And then it kind of has just like appeared to conclude very easily and like suddenly, and I'm like, that's it? Like, there must be something more to that's going to happen in the last 100 pages. At least I hope so, because otherwise I'm going to be like, are you kidding me? What the heck? So my plan is to finish this book tonight. It's Friday. And then I had initially thought that I might read another book for this video, and I had thought I might read Reckless by Elsie Silver, but then I placed an order to like pick it up in store, and then it like got canceled because I guess they either didn't have the inventory they thought, or it was like damaged or something, so they wouldn't sell it to me. So then it like wasn't there for me to pick up that day like I thought it was going to be. So now I don't have the book, so I can't read it. And then I also was thinking about how I'm a yapaholic, so I've been yapping a lot in this video already, and this is a really big book. I've been talking about it a lot. So I feel like this is going to be enough yapping for this video. And this is just going to be the video. It's just going to be about this one book, which I know is not usually how I do my finishing series videos. But guys, this is a really big series and this is a really big book and I am finishing it. Okay? It's been taking me ages to read this book. She's a chonker. She's a brick. Build me a house. So yeah, I'm gonna finish the book. I'll let you know my final thoughts and then we'll clue up the video. And then I'll make another finishing series vlog soon. I promise. I'm hoping to finish one, maybe two more series before the end of 2025. Fingers crossed for me, guys. Everybody cross your fingers for me because I'm going to need the luck based off of my current reputation of finishing series. And speaking of finishing, gonna go finish this book right now. Okay, bye. Mr. Man, did you want to come say hi to the vlog? Welcome back to the vlog, to me, because I'm the only one who left. And I'm here because I finished reading The Lost Metal. Just like I said I would, guys. Look, I hold to my word every now and then. So I did finish reading The Lost Metal, and I finished it like last night, so I decided to wait until this morning to give you an update. I end up giving this 4 stars. I almost gave it a 3.5, not gonna lie, and that is because I felt not that it was bad, but that I could see it being better for me as a reader. I think overall this, as like the ending for Era 2 of Mistborn, is solid, good, concluded well. You do get conclusions for all of the characters for the end of like their story arc, while also leaving kind of like a concept idea of now where the Mistborn world and Scadrial are going to develop into for Era 3 of Mistborn, which is kind of what you expect from Era 2, obviously, like, because there's Era 1, there's Era 2. I believe Brandon Sanderson's working on Era 3 right now. So it left things open enough to kind of lead you to see what's going to develop in this world, what could potentially continue to be an issue even further down the line, like centuries later, perhaps, for Era 3 of Mistborn, where we'll enter into a new story arc with new characters and what's going to happen to technology and politics and religion and the magic system, how all of that's going to kind of like interplay. It kind of like leads you to some thoughts about that, which are all themes through Era 1 and Era 2 of Mistborn that you see is kind of like this idea of how does a world develop? How does a society develop? How do countries come together? It shows that developmental process in Era 1 and also Era 2 for different technological ages of a world. It's very interesting. I like how Brandon Sanderson has done that. I will say, you know, like, was I a fan of the ending? No. Do I get it? Yeah, this is not going to be happily ever after kind of story, right? So, you know, you can see it coming and I hated it, but I got it and I understand why it needed to be done. It doesn't mean I'm happy about it though. I can still be disappointed. So I felt like because it concluded things well that, you know, like I ended up bumping it up to a 4. But I really was feeling 3.5 about this because even though I think the story that Brandon Sanderson chose to do and how it played out was done really well, it was just like not the story I was wanting for The Lost Metal. Like I said before, this being like the 4th book and the conclusion book, this is our last time with these characters. I was kind of disappointed to see that for the majority of the book, our little fun gang was split up for almost all of it. I wanted to see them working together more. I wanted more dynamics within the larger group instead of this like split scenario. There was like introductions of new characters that kind of felt to me, for being new characters introduced in the 4th book, to just take up a bit too much page room when there's other characters that I just, you know, I like more and I wanted to see more of. I also felt because of some fight scenes and how much just like page length it takes up to describe those scenes, which I said before are done really well, that near the end of the book you kind of have a bit too much space in between some of the POVs where I was just kind of like waiting to go back to one of them. I was like, are we ever going to go back there? Like, we haven't seen what's going on over there in a while. What's happening? I also feel, okay. How do I say this in a way where it's exactly describing without telling you what happened? Okay. There's two branches to the main plot point of this book, of what we're trying to solve with our characters in this. It branches off into two things. And I think one side of that was done extremely well, and it had all of the emotional weight and the tension and the character development and the inner conflicts for the characters. All of that was lined up and done well, and that was concluded great. And then I felt the other branch of that story was, I felt like it was developing, and then it got to a point where we were like, okay, we got to clue this up quick. And then it just like boom, 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 done. And it felt like that should have been a much bigger point, and it was almost barely mentioned. And it also was concluded, I would say, like, when I gave my last update, I thought there was going to be a bit more to that plot point at that point, but there's not. Basically, before the last 100 to 130 pages, it's done. That storyline's done, and there's still 130 pages left of the book, which I thought was like really, it was just unexpected from Brandon Sanderson, because I feel like he's such a thorough storyteller that I was really surprised that that was seemingly paced so weirdly. It was kind of like dragging out and suspenseful, and then it was just like boom, 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 plot, done. Okay, moving on back to this other thing that's more important. And I was like, one, is it more important? And two, why did we do that so fast? Brandon, I don't know if I liked that, sir. So that was kind of like the main thing that bothered me, because it almost felt like, well, why did we have that there? Why did we deal with all of that if you're going to write it in a way that feels so unimportant? I will say there's also clearly, just from like my general knowledge of hearing people talk about Stormlight Archives, I don't know anything really about the plot of that series. I have kept myself miraculously in the dark about most of it, but there's certain words and terms of like, I assume either places or names in the Cosmere that are kind of like Easter egg dropped in this, which I was expecting, because I do know obviously like the Cosmere is all interconnected, and you kind of expect to see that in the Cosmere books, is like links between them all. And so I do want to read Stormlight Archive now. The only thing is, I just finished this series. So do I want to start another gigantic one? Like, kind of, I do. I like having an ongoing Brandon Sanderson series to be reading. I just don't know if I'm mentally prepared to dive into that right now, or financially prepared to dive into that right now, let's be honest. But I have now finished reading Mistborn Era 2. And I'd say overall, this is like a very different story from Mistborn Era 1, and I think I like both of them equally for different reasons. I remember when I first started reading Mistborn Era 1, I read The Alloy of Law, and I actually really didn't like it. And it was because I was going into it expecting it to have the same kind of writing style as Mistborn Era 1, where it feels much more serious high fantasy in Era 1. And Era 2 is still obviously high fantasy. It's in the same world. We have the same magic systems, but there's a certain lighthearted nature to it, and these gunslinging fight scenes all over the place that when I first read The Alloy of Law, and I was not expecting that, it made me dislike it, because it felt like nothing was happening in the book, because so much of the page count was being taken up by these really descriptive fight scenes. However, upon like rereading it and knowing what I was getting into, I then actually ended up really loving it and really loving these characters and really connecting to these characters, this fun little gang. And I'm kind of like, you know, a little sad to see them go now. Maybe I'll have to reread all of Mistborn at some point, but whew, baby, that is many pages to be reliving. But I do love doing a reread, so maybe I'll do it. In conclusion, I gave it a 4-star just because I do love this world, but I almost gave it a 3.5. I felt like it could have been done a bit better for one part of the plot, but overall it was fine. And as much as I can, you know, say I didn't like it because I wanted the gang back together, Brandon Sanderson is allowed to not write a book the way I want it to be written, you know? Like, he created this world, he can do what he wants. But I now am only reading 19 series. I am officially under 20 at this point. However, I am starting The Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan because I really want some kind of like YA middle grade fantasy fun happening in my life. So we're just gonna go right back up to 20 at this point. But I'm hoping to finish some more series before the end of the year. So stay tuned for another and possibly better finishing series reading vlog, because in this one I only read one book and finished one series, and I am hoping to make a bit more progress in that in the future. But I'm gonna leave it here for now. So if you liked the video, make sure to give it a like, give it a little thumbs up. If you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. Let me know how many series you're reading and currently in the middle of. Do you read fantasy series? Do you read Brandon Sanderson? Have you read Era 2 or Era 1 of Mistborn? What are your thoughts on it? Who's your favorite character, Wax or Wayne? I'm a Wayne fan. I love Wayne, okay? And with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!